What if I told you that not all the 12 apostles died as martyrs? That some stories you've heard might not be as they seem? Here's a surprising fact. While martyrdom is often associated with the apostles, historians and theologians have debated their fates for centuries. Were their deaths truly acts of faith, or have the stories been embellished over time? In this video, we're diving deep into the mysteries surrounding the deaths of the 12 apostles. By the end, we'll reveal the most shocking and lesser-known truths about their final moments. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. But first, let's begin by exploring who the 12 apostles were and why their martyrdom is so significant in Christian tradition. Stick with us, and don't forget to comment with your thoughts as we unravel this ancient mystery together. Part 1. The Mystery of the Apostles' Deaths. Fact or faithful legend? What if the stories of the apostles' deaths, the ones we've heard for centuries, are not as straightforward as they seem? Did Peter really die crucified upside down, or is it a symbol of humility that grew over time? And what about John? Did he truly escape martyrdom, or does his story hold a deeper secret? In this section, we'll explore the fascinating, often conflicting tales of how the apostles met their end. Their lives and deaths shaped the very foundations of Christianity. But separating fact from tradition isn't as simple as it seems. Stick with me as we unravel the mystery, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. This is a conversation as much as it is an exploration. 1. A legacy of martyrdom. Faith or fabrication. For nearly 2 millennia, the apostles have been celebrated not just for their devotion, but also for their ultimate sacrifice. Tradition tells us they died for their faith, facing unimaginable horrors to spread the gospel. But here's the question. How much of what we know is rooted in historical fact, and how much is a tapestry woven from devotion and legend? Take Peter, for instance, often considered the rock upon which the church was built. Stories say he was crucified upside down in Rome because he felt unworthy to die in the same manner as Christ. It's a powerful image, but when we examine the earliest texts, the details grow murky. Was this account a historical event, or a narrative crafted to emphasize Peter's humility and devotion? Then there's John, the beloved disciple, whose story takes an entirely different turn. Unlike his peers, John is said to have died of natural causes. Exiled to the desolate island of Patmos, he lived out his days in isolation, a punishment some argue is no less severe than physical martyrdom. But here's the twist. While tradition paints him as the apostle who escaped violent death, other sources hint at attempted executions that miraculously failed. Could these stories have been exaggerated to highlight divine protection? 2. The discrepancies in their stories. The deeper we dive, the more inconsistencies we uncover. Bartholomew, for example, is traditionally believed to have been flayed alive, a horrific end meant to illustrate his unwavering faith. Yet, alternative accounts suggest a different, less graphic fate. Why such stark contrasts? And what about Andrew, the apostle associated with the X-shaped cross? While this image is iconic today, the earliest records don't specify the cross's shape. Was this detail added centuries later to enhance his narrative? Even Thomas, remembered for his doubts, has a story split between 2 vastly different traditions. One claims he was speared to death in India while spreading the gospel, while another posits a more ambiguous ending. These discrepancies raise a critical question. Are these variations simply a product of oral tradition evolving over time, or do they point to deliberate embellishments meant to inspire believers? 3. Why does it matter? You might be wondering, does it really matter how they died? In one sense, the exact details may not change the impact of their message. But in another, understanding these stories helps us grapple with a deeper truth. The line between history and faith is often blurred. These debates are not just academic exercises. They touch on the very essence of how we remember these figures. Do we honor them for their faith alone, or does the authenticity of their sacrifice enhance their legacy? What do you think? Are these stories meant to inspire devotion, regardless of their historical accuracy, or should we seek to uncover the unembellished truth? Share your perspective in the comments. I'm eager to hear how these stories resonate with you. As we continue this journey, we'll delve into the evidence, both biblical and historical, that sheds light on the fates of the apostles. But for now, let's reflect on this. Whether these stories are fact or faithful legend, they've endured for centuries, shaping the hearts and minds of millions. So, stay tuned. The next part will dive even deeper into the records, revealing the most accepted accounts alongside those shrouded in mystery. Before we move forward, let me ask you this. Which apostle story do you find most intriguing so far? Drop your answers below. And if you're as captivated by these mysteries as I am, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Ancient Faith Explorations. Together, we'll uncover the truths hidden in the folds of history and faith. Part 2. Unveiling the Truth. Historical and biblical evidence behind the apostles' deaths. How much of what we believe about the apostles' deaths is grounded in history? And how much is shaped by legend? What if the stories we've cherished for centuries hide details that could rewrite our understanding of their lives and their sacrifices? In this section, we'll dig into the evidence, biblical accounts, historical records, and ancient traditions. Together, we'll uncover where faith meets fact and where history blurs into mystery. Stay tuned, because by the end of this, you might see the apostles in a completely new light. 1. What the Bible tells us and what it doesn't. The Bible, as the cornerstone of Christian faith, provides some insights into the lives of the apostles, but when it comes to their deaths, the narrative is strikingly sparse. The Acts of the Apostles, for instance, recounts the stoning of Stephen, widely considered the first Christian martyr, in vivid and heartbreaking detail. Yet, it leaves the fates of Peter, James, and the others mostly untold. We do know that James the Greater, one of the sons of thunder, met a grim fate. The New Testament briefly mentions his execution by King Herod Agrippa I, a power move designed to suppress the growing Christian movement. But beyond this brief mention, the details of his final moments remain a mystery. And what about Peter, the rock upon which the church was built? While his leadership and faith are emphasized throughout Scripture, the specifics of his martyrdom are notably absent. These omissions leave us with more questions than answers, pushing us to turn to other sources for clues. 2. The role of extra-biblical sources. To fill these gaps, we look to extra-biblical accounts, writings from early historians, church traditions, and apocryphal texts. These sources, though rich in detail, are often contradictory, raising the question, how much can we trust them? Take James the Greater as an example. The historian Josephus provides a more detailed account of his execution by Herod Agrippa, confirming that he was the first apostle to die for his faith. Yet, there's little agreement on the exact circumstances of his death. Was he publicly beheaded as a warning to others? Or was his execution carried out in secret to avoid backlash? Then there's Thomas, often referred to as Doubting Thomas for his initial skepticism of the resurrection. His journey to India is legendary, portraying him as a fearless missionary spreading the gospel to the farthest reaches of the known world. According to tradition, Thomas met his end at the hands of spears, martyred for his faith. But here's the twist. Some accounts suggest he was killed in a spontaneous act of violence, while others describe a premeditated attack by local authorities. Which version holds the truth? 3. The iconic deaths and their doubts. Andrew's story is one of the most iconic. He's often depicted crucified on an X-shaped cross, a symbol now synonymous with his name. But this detail doesn't appear in the earliest accounts of his death. In fact, the shape of the cross wasn't mentioned until centuries later, leaving historians to wonder, was this a historical fact or a later addition to elevate the drama of his martyrdom? Bartholomew's fate is perhaps the most gruesome. Tradition claims he was flayed alive, a horrifying act meant to silence his unwavering faith. Yet, other accounts suggest his death may have been less graphic. Could this divergence in stories reflect the evolution of oral tradition, shaped by the cultures that preserved them? Even John, the beloved disciple, has his share of mysteries, unlike his peers. Tradition holds that John died of old age, the only apostle to escape a violent death. Yet his exile to the island of Patmos raises questions. Was this isolation punishment enough to count as a form of living martyrdom? And are there untold aspects of his life that could change our perception of his legacy? 4. The challenges of separating fact from faith. One of the biggest challenges in examining the apostles' deaths is the timeline of these accounts. Many were written decades, even centuries, after the events they describe. As a result, the line between historical accuracy and devotional embellishment becomes increasingly blurred. For instance, early Christian communities may have added symbolic elements to these stories to inspire faith and solidarity. Peter's upside-down crucifixion, for example, is often seen as a powerful symbol of humility and devotion. But was it a historical reality or a theological narrative crafted to emphasize his character? Similarly, the discrepancies in Thomas's death could reflect cultural influences as the story traveled from one region to another. In India, where his mission is deeply revered, his martyrdom is often portrayed as a monumental act of faith. But how much of this narrative was shaped by local traditions rather than historical fact? As we unravel these mysteries, I want to hear from you. Do you think these stories, with all their contradictions and embellishments, still serve their purpose in inspiring faith? Or should we strive for historical clarity, even if it challenges traditional narratives? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective is invaluable in this exploration. In the next section, we'll delve into the most shocking revelations about the apostles' deaths, details that might completely reshape what you think you know. But for now, let's reflect on what we've uncovered so far. These stories, whether fact or faithful legend, have endured for centuries, shaping the foundations of Christian faith. They remind us of the sacrifices made to spread the gospel, even if the exact details remain shrouded in mystery. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Ancient Faith Explorations. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you won't miss the next chapter in this journey. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Share your insights, questions, and reflections in the comments. Let's uncover the truth together. Part 3. Uncovering the shocking truths about the apostles' deaths. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about the apostles' fates. What if their deaths, as dramatic as they seem, hold secrets that challenge our understanding of faith and sacrifice? Tonight, we're peeling back the layers to reveal truths that are as shocking as they are thought-provoking. Stay with me, because the story of these 12 extraordinary men, and those who followed in their footsteps, is about to take a turn you never expected. 1. The enigma of Judas Iscariot. Let's start with one of the most infamous names in history, Judas Iscariot. His betrayal of Jesus is a cornerstone of Christian tradition. But did you know there's more to his story than meets the eye? Some early Christian sects believed that Judas's betrayal wasn't an act of treachery, but a necessary part of God's divine plan. Think about it. Without Judas's actions, the crucifixion, and ultimately the resurrection, might not have unfolded as they did. Could Judas, long vilified as the ultimate betrayer, actually have been an instrument of destiny? This radical reinterpretation forces us to reconsider how we view his legacy. Was he truly the villain, or was his role misunderstood, even essential? It's a haunting question that leaves us wondering. How often do we misjudge those whose actions pave the way for greater purposes? 2. Matthew's mysterious death. Matthew, the tax collector turned apostle, offers another puzzle. Tradition tells us he was martyred in Ethiopia, a fate befitting his bold mission to spread the gospel in distant lands. But here's where things get intriguing. Some accounts suggest that Matthew died peacefully of natural causes. If true, this makes him one of the few apostles to escape a violent end, a rare exception in a group defined by their willingness to die for their faith. But why would such an important figure in early Christianity have such conflicting accounts of his death? Could it be that Matthew's story evolved over time to reflect the values of the communities who preserved it? Or is this discrepancy a reminder that even the most devoted followers of Christ were human, their lives shaped by circumstances as much as by divine calling? 3. Paul, the privileged martyr. Paul, the apostle who wasn't one of the original 12 but arguably one of the most influential, offers perhaps the most shocking revelation. His Roman citizenship granted him a privilege that set him apart from most early Christians, a relatively swift and honorable execution by beheading, rather than the torturous fate of crucifixion. Imagine this. While Peter and Andrew were nailed to crosses and James was executed with a sword, Paul's status allowed him a death that was, by comparison, almost merciful. But what does this tell us about the world they lived in? It's a reminder of the stark inequalities of the Roman Empire, where even in death, social status could determine your fate. Yet, it also underscores Paul's unique role in the spread of Christianity, his ability to navigate both Jewish and Roman worlds, using his position to amplify the message of Christ. 4. The unanswered questions of Bartholomew and Thaddeus. Bartholomew and Thaddeus remain two of the most enigmatic figures among the apostles. Bartholomew's death, often described as being flayed alive, is one of the most gruesome martyrdom stories. But did you know that some traditions dispute this account entirely, suggesting instead that he was beheaded? Thaddeus, also known as Jude, is similarly shrouded in mystery. While some sources claim he was clubbed to death, others suggest a more peaceful end. These conflicting narratives raise a bigger question. How much of what we know about the apostles is shaped by faith rather than fact? 5. The apostles as humans. These stories, dramatic, conflicting, and often contradictory, reveal one undeniable truth. The apostles were human. They were not perfect saints living in an idealized world, but real people navigating the challenges of faith, politics, and survival. Think about Judas, whose betrayal may have been divinely orchestrated, or Matthew, whose death remains a mystery, or Paul, whose Roman privilege set him apart even in martyrdom. These complexities don't diminish their legacy. They make their faith even more profound. Because isn't faith, at its core, about persevering despite uncertainty? Isn't it about holding on to your beliefs even when the world around you is chaotic and unclear? Let me ask you this. Which of these revelations surprised you the most? Was it Judas's possible role in God's plan, Matthew's mysterious end, or perhaps the privileged Paul, carried even into death? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know how you interpret these stories, what they mean to you, and how they shape your understanding of faith and history. And if you've made it this far, I know you're as captivated by these mysteries as I am. Let's keep the conversation going. As we explore these stories, one thing becomes today. We've journeyed through faith, history, and mystery to uncover the truth about the 12 apostles. While their stories inspire, they also remind us of the complexity of human belief and sacrifice. The question remains, does it matter how they died, or is it their unwavering dedication that truly defines them? As you reflect on these stories, ask yourself, how does your faith shape the way you live? If this exploration resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Ancient Faith Explorations. Hit the bell icon to ensure you never miss our next dive into the mysteries of faith. And before you go, join the conversation in the comments. Your thoughts could illuminate a new perspective for someone else. Until next time, keep seeking, questioning, and living your faith with courage and truth.